Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to this week's podcast. According to a study conducted by Thomas, Stanley and William Danko, who are the authors of the Millionaire Next Door, a significant portion of millionaires attribute their financial success to their mindset. They found that millionaires tend to be frugal, disciplined, and have a long-term perspective on wealth building, very similar to our philosophy in Iconic Wealth for Women. Yet often this is not the sexy part of success. So many out there chase tactics, they chase strategies, they wait for the next big shiny object to make it all happen. And so today I'm really excited to introduce you to the fabulous Lesley Thomas. She is the founder of the Money Confidence Academy and also the director of her family ski business, property business. Lesley's passionate about supporting her clients and wider community to really understand relationship with money and how it truly begins by understanding the relationships with themselves. The first 20 years of Lesley's career was spent in corporate telecommunications before starting her entrepreneurial journey just over 12 years ago. Her business mantra is where mindset goes, money grows, which I absolutely love. So welcome, Lesley. It's awesome to have you here. Would you like to tell us, to start with, just to kind of get started, to set the scene a little bit, can you tell us a bit about your journey to kind of being the founder of the Money Confidence Academy, and I guess why it was so important for you to go down that particular route in your business?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you very much for having me on the podcast, Kylie. Really looking forward to this conversation. So people make the assumption that, I've come to do what I have done because of my own relationship with money, when actually I'm doing what I'm doing because of the connection between confidence and our relationship with money. I've coached and mentored pretty much the whole of my career. But I only decided to become a business coach back in 2020. And I retrained as a business coach with the plan to be a confidence coach for women. But the more I looked into the subject of confidence and self-worth, self-value, everything that we associate with being confident, the one common denominator kept coming up, and that was money. So I have spent the whole of the last few years getting really educated around our relationship with money, our behaviors around money, and the impact that has on our sense of self-confidence. Because a successful business needs to have somebody who has real confidence in what they are doing, how they are doing it, and talking about it confidently. And for me, that is the core of everything I do, helping my clients to become really confident about themselves and then in turn their relationship with money. And that is reflected in their own sense of self-worth, self-value, and how they show up in their business and personally as well.
Oh, I love that. And you and I joke quite a lot around that we don't talk enough about money, that we avoid it. And quite often, it's interesting, when we talk to a lot of women entrepreneurs, it's quite often the thing that they hide away from because they're seen as successful. A lot of people have that vision that they're really good at what they do, they're really successful, but they kind of have this hidden secret on the side. And the hidden secret is not taking control of their money. And we always hear that it's often the limiting beliefs that hold us back. And I know that you've got a slightly different view on that it's not really the limiting belief itself that hold us back. So do you want to tell us a bit more about your thoughts around limiting beliefs and how they impact us moving forward?
Yeah, absolutely. So our limiting beliefs are definitely not what holds us back because, as Nike has always said, you can feel the fear and do it anyway. Whenever we're doing anything new, anything that makes us feel uncomfortable, as long as we have the ability to see why we are doing it, that's what keeps us going. The really important part is it's the limiting decision that you make as a result of your limiting belief, that limiting decision that stops you from doing that thing that you need to do in order to win that new client, in order to grow your audience, in order to have that uncomfortable conversation. So it's when you start to realize, What is it that I don't want to do? Why do I not want to do it? And if I don't do it, what is the impact going to be on me and on my business? And to give you a good example, visibility is something that, lots of us in the online space have found it very uncomfortable to do. I can remember really clearly my first Facebook Live. And my coach at the time, she kept saying to me, Lesley, you need to be more visible in your business. I didn't understand why I needed to be more visible. Surely I would just tell people what I did and they'd be queuing out the door to want to work with me. Of course, that didn't happen. If I wasn't able to really market myself effectively, what I did, the results I brought for clients, how were people going to know what I did? So I had to get out of my own way and actually start becoming a lot more visible. If I had stuck with my limiting belief, the limiting belief that I had was, first of all, I didn't need to be visible. My business would grow regardless, that I was not good being visible. Who was I to want to tell people about what I could do for clients? Who was I to stand up as an expert in my field? What would people think about me going live talking about what I do? How would I look on camera? How was my hair that day? How was my skin that day? Etc. etc. Exactly. So if I carried on believing all of those things and doing nothing about it, then my business would not have had the ability to grow. I actually chose to make a different decision. And the decision I chose was learn how to get comfortable being visible, learn how to get comfortable doing the things I needed to do to be visible. And they were very small steps to begin with, but like with anything, the more we do something, the more comfortable we are doing it, and the easier it is to do it next time. So it's not the limiting belief, it is the limiting decision that you take as a result of whatever your limiting belief is or limiting beliefs are. And once you decide to say, no, I recognize I'm going to be uncomfortable, but I have to do it because the reason why I want to do it is so important.
Yeah, I love that, because it's funny because we all have them, don't we? It's like you said, it's whether you take action around them or let them hold you back.
Yeah.
You just brought up a great memory. I remember doing my first video. I remember coming from the corporate space, because obviously corporate training was very prim, proper and very straightforward. I'm sure you've probably been there as well. But I remember getting on camera and it was like every word was scripted. Every word was so controlled. And now I get feedback like, wow, you just jump on, you're just a natural. And it's like, yeah, but it took me many times to get that comfortable where I can just jump on a live now and just do it straight away.
Exactly.
But yeah, I think we've all got experiences like that. But again, it's like you said, I love that you talk about this, the decision you make around that limiting belief. Because I think no matter how successful you are, we all have different limiting beliefs at different times, don't we? Along our journey, they come up in, when you're stepping out of your comfort zone, because we all know getting out of your comfort zone is one of the most important steps to success in anything that you do. You have to take that first step out and it feels uncomfortable. So how do you kind of develop that sort of mindset where, we talk a lot about activities you can do. So how can they start to identify? Because for me, identifying limiting beliefs is the first step. So how do they identify that? What could they be doing if they're sitting there with that little sort of voice in their head and they know it's holding them back? What should they get started with potentially, and how can we start to overcome some of this?
And I think that's exactly it, awareness. And having that awareness about what is that internal conversation that you are having. What is your, the way I describe it is big ego versus little ego. And again, I reverse it. The big ego is you wanting to be the best version of you wanting to create a big vision for yourself and your business and taking that action. That's how I view the big ego. The little ego is that little voice in your head that is trying to convince you that you shouldn't be doing it, that you're going to fall flat in your face, that you're going to look stupid, and who are you to have that big vision, etc., etc. And for a lot of people, they are not aware quite how often they speak badly to themselves, quite how often they are not that supportive person they should be to themselves. So a really, really simple exercise that I very often suggest to my clients is the 24-hour notebook exercise, where you literally carry around a notebook and pen for 24 hours. Every time a negative thought comes into your head, you get your pen and paper. You don't write that thought down that you've had, you write it down in the positive. And then at the end of that 24 hours, you can first of all see how many times you have had a negative conversation, you've had a negative thought, but even more importantly, you're actually creating affirmations that are personal to you and to your situation. Because whilst I love affirmations, I also think if you don't use the correct affirmation or set of affirmations for you, all you're going to end up doing is reinforcing. So, for example, somebody who keeps saying, I am wealthy, I am wealthy, I am wealthy. They look at their bank account and the bank goes, hang on a minute, you keep saying you're wealthy, but you're using your overdraft. The two just don't join up. Whereas if you actually take the negative conversation you're having with yourself, I can't go live on Facebook, I look stupid. I will go live on Facebook and people will be amazed at how much I know my topic, or people will be drawn to me because they'll understand that I know what I am doing. So actually write down the opposite of that what pops into your head, and you'll discover by the end of the 24 hours, you will start to be able to stop that thought from even forming, because you will have heightened your awareness, heightened your subconscious into realizing you're about to say something unhelpful. You're about to say something that's going to hinder your progress. And once we become aware that actually we're being our own worst enemy, we'll actually start to do something about it, because it'll be completely the opposite of what we should be doing in terms of the support we should be giving to ourselves.
I love that. I think I'm going to have to carry a notebook around for 24 hours. It's interesting. It's like you said, it's funny because, I do a lot of this in NLP, because at NLP, we talk about reframing a lot, and reframing very quickly negative beliefs into positive affirmations. And I really love that you make them really personal. I think that's very different. I remember when I first started my personal development journey, and, you got this list of mantras, and it was like, I am a millionaire, I am this, and I am this. And I used to sit there going, no, I'm not, like, no way. So I love the way you bridge that gap, because I think for me, that's such a powerful step to take. It's like, just turn that initial thought around first before you try and even add another layer of potentially vision or stretch to it. So I really love that. So yeah, I think I'm going to have to do, Lesley and I were just talking about an event I'm putting on and I just heard myself. It's really interesting, isn't it? Someone else frames what you talk about. And I just realized I was doing exactly the same thing for this event. So I think I'm going to carry a journal around and talk about this event and change it around, because we all have fears when we step out of our comfort zone. So one of the big things I see a lot of women struggle with, I think, is this comparative. I hate it. I can never say this. Comparatitis. Yeah, comparative. You know what I mean? When you're comparing yourself. So a lot. This is a really common one I see a lot. Is like, we're on a different journey, but people hold themselves back because they think, but this person's doing it this way. Should I be doing it this? So I see this a lot with the shiny object syndrome. People change their path too quickly because they're worried about what someone else is doing. How do you get through that process? Is one of the big things that I see a lot of in women I work with.
And again, it's having that sense of awareness. And I think it's also being really open and honest that it hits all of us, and that it is normal to go through that, but to recognize, how is it serving me? How is it serving me? Me comparing myself to somebody else. The journey I'm on is different to the journey that they're on. They could have been on their journey longer than I've been on my journey, but actually to be aware of, what is it doing for me, and why am I feeling the feelings that I'm feeling? Because I think very often we will discount the feelings that we're feeling until a point comes where they just take over. we start to feel overwhelmed. We start to suffer from burnout, etc., etc. But when we actually question, and the reframe, I think, I used to be called the queen of reframe, but I do think reframing is so important, because actually, if we go and seek the evidence of what we want to do is possible. So a coach who is earning, tens of thousands of pounds a month, rather than looking at her and going, oh, God, how is she doing that? Why am I not able to do it? Instead, go and look at that coach and find out what is it they're doing? What is the journey that they've been on? If they are earning that amount of money, then they're demonstrating it's possible to earn that amount of money. So rather than looking at that person and feeling negative about yourself, look at that person and go, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find out how they are doing it. I'm going to see whether or not that fits into my model of the world, and to see whether it's relevant for me to go on a similar journey. And if it's relevant for me to go on a similar journey, what small steps can I take to go in that direction? Because usually what we try and do is to do everything all at once. I want to be that person. I want to have a massive launch. Okay, how big is your audience? What do you mean, how big's my audience? I haven't got a list. Okay, so what about your Facebook group? I haven't got a Facebook group. Okay, what about your Instagram audience? Well, I don't really have very, very many people following me. So they try and do that big step rather than, okay, so I need to grow my audience. Where shall I grow my audience? Where are my clients hanging out? Where do I feel comfortable hanging out? So it's taking that step back, utilizing the knowledge, the research you have done about other people in your industry. And instead of going, why can't that be me? Reframe it into, what do I need to do to be able to replicate the success that they are having? And what are those small steps I need to start taking to lead me in that direction?
Oh, I really love that. I think that I used to have a real issue when I used to go to events like that, and I used to sit there going, oh, why am I the one not on stage? It's like, and it took me to reframe it, to sit there going, okay, so there's an opportunity I could be. So now I'm creating my own stage instead, which I think is pretty awesome right now. But again, and it is looking at those little steps. I think that we all kind of, like you said, it's a bit like the iceberg effect, isn't it? Where you see all the top and you see the success, but you don't see all the little legs running underneath. They're all the little bits running in. And I see people a lot trying to do that. They try and create that success overnight that someone else has spent months building up. So I really value what you said there around, it's the small steps. Look at their success path. Look at the things that they've done. I remember learning one of my first money mindset things was looking at how you react to a flash car, for example. What sort of reaction do you have? Do you react to it in a negative way, or do you, like some people, swear at them, or they curse, or they call them names? Or do you go, wow, wonder what he does, wonder how they've got there, wonder how they managed to drive a car like that? So I love your analogy around reframing in relation to looking at how you respond, because it tells you so much about your own journey. So in relation to kind of your own experience as a women business owner, what sort of something that you can share in relation to where has it maybe gone wrong for you at some stage and you've had to turn it around? Or what's one of your biggest learnings and lessons during your 12-year career as a business owner now?
I think, it's recognizing that it's not always going to be easy. And that you do need to have, a real sense of, I'm on a journey. There's going to be times when I'm going to be taken off the direction that I thought I was going to go in. When we set up when I joined our property business in circa 2010, 11, we thought we'd come out of the 2008 global crash, but there was still, there was still the tailwind from that crash. Then we moved into the rumours about Brexit. Then we had the Brexit referendum. Then we had us leaving the EU. Then we had the pandemic, etc., etc. And for me, I think actually that one of the biggest learnings is to say there's probably never going to be huge periods of economic stability. We're probably only going to move, from one period of being uncomfortable to the next period of being uncomfortable. And it really is about preparing yourself to be as comfortable as you can be on that journey that is going to be uncomfortable. And to recognize there is always going to be people ahead of you. There's always going to be people behind you. What you have got to do is actually be really, really connected to, why am I putting myself through these difficult feelings of discomfort on that journey? And it's because if you don't put yourself through those periods of discomfort, actually, you're never going to grow, and you're going to sit back and you're going to regret why you didn't achieve everything that you wanted to achieve. So I've become very, very aware of how I feel. But I think the big lesson that I've learned was, I don't have to do it by myself. I don't have to have all the answers. And I think that was the biggest learning for me. If you're struggling, say you are struggling. If you need help, say you need help, rather than thinking. And I think this is the same probably for all entrepreneurs, particularly when you've been in the corporate world. When you've been in the corporate world, you have a department that does the marketing. You have a department that does the product development, and a department that does the pricing. And all of a sudden, as an entrepreneur, particularly in the early days, you have to do it all. And we're very often, we feel it's a limit in ourselves. Why can't I do it all? Why have I not got the ability to be the ideal, the perfect marketer, and the perfect product creator, and the perfect person on camera, etc., etc.? It's because you don't have to be. And by admitting that sometimes you're feeling a little bit low, a little bit scared, a little bit overwhelmed, actually that releases that feeling of being overwhelmed, of being scared. So I think it is a case of recognizing how you're feeling. You're allowed to feel. Many of us are feeling the same, but to actually admit that you are not brilliant at everything, and to go and find the answers that you don't know yourself, and be prepared to be a little bit vulnerable. Because the more vulnerable you are, the more human you are, and the more other people will connect with you anyway.
Yeah, I love that. I remember when I first got started, I definitely had that sort of come from quite a strong sales background and a perfection background, and I was always highly successful. And I remember having my first meltdown in my business going, what am I doing? I can't do this. And I couldn't reach out to anyone. Whereas now I'm very much like, I have my mini meltdowns. I think we all do at some stage. And I think that's the thing about being a woman as well. It's like, we're allowed to have tears every now and again. We're allowed to feel overwhelmed. And life is a roller coaster of, whether you're going through hormones, whether you're going through changes, whether you're dealing with family, husbands, wife, whatever.
Yeah.
I think it is a different world now. And I think that, there used to be a lot of stigma on releasing that. And, Lesley and I were just talking about, I had my mini meltdown on Sunday. It was my brother's anniversary. I'm putting this massive big event on, and all the, the fears come up, don't they? The fears of like, what am I doing? Should I be doing this? Why am I to create this platform? And I think, like you said, the difference I think with successful entrepreneurs is they'll have meltdowns, they have moments, and they'll either reach out for help or they will move on very fast. I think that's a difference as well. I used to keep stuck in it a lot, and I don't now. I'm like, no, it's okay to have a good cry every now and again. It's okay to, feel, like you said, that vulnerability, but also it's okay to pick yourself up and keep moving. And I think that's where I know I've definitely developed, where before I would have let it get me down. I would have taken it all personally. Now I'm just like, nah, it's fine.
Absolutely.
So I love that. I love that vulnerability. And I think that, if you're struggling, to ask for help. So what's some tips in relation to kind of, if you are struggling, or if you're in that overwhelm, if you've got something going on, what's the first thing that you can actually do? Like, what would you recommend? Let's give some practical tips on stuff.
Yeah. And I do think I think it is a case of talking to somebody, first of all. I can remember very clearly October 2021. And I had been feeling And I think we were coming out of lockdown. We were starting to have, more and more getting togethers offline, in the real world, etc., etc. I had lots of stuff that was going on in terms of growing the business. And I think I went into a state of just overwhelm, but thinking I had to cope with it all. And I can remember sitting on the sofa. I'm in my garden office, like point down there because that's where my house is.
Yeah.
I can remember sitting on the sofa and just crying. And my husband hadn't even noticed that I was crying. I'm really upset over here. And part of that problem is I am the kind of person everybody comes to with their problems.
Yeah.
I don't go to anybody with my problems. So he had no awareness that I was even feeling upset. Once he'd cottoned on and I had my mini meltdown, just like you described on Sunday, I had that mini meltdown. That actually taught me a massive lesson that how was I helping myself by always being the one that was there for everybody else and not actually being honest that it needed to be a two-way street, that I need people to support me in the same way that I support other people. So I think it is, and there's two sides to the online world. There is where you can look at it and you can get fear of missing out, and you can get comparisonitis, and you can feel sorry for yourself because others are doing this and you're not doing that. Or you can say, wow, look at all these people I now have in my network. Look at all these people that I say, I'm struggling with this. I see you're really good at that. Could you give me a few pointers, please, on what I need to do? So I think it is building up the right people around you, because I genuinely think, we are the average of the 5 people we spend our time with, but being honest about how you are feeling. Don't try and paper over the cracks. Don't try and be seen as that person who is always the coper, is always the one that is strong for other people, because you're only as strong as your last meltdown, basically.
Oops, I know.
But that's right. So you learn from it.
Yeah,
and
you do, yeah.
You feel better because you remind people that actually, I've always been there for you. Actually, right now, I need you to be there for me. And I think people really appreciate the fact that you feel as though you can go to them. And, I know it's a cliche, but, a trouble shared is definitely a trouble halved. So just be open, going back to being vulnerable, and just actually go to whoever is trusted in your network and say, I'm really struggling with this at the moment. Can you give me a hand, please?
Yeah, I love that. And I think I used to definitely be at fault for that. I was always the strong one. And I remember one time I broke down and one of my friends said, I've never seen you cry. I've never seen you like in that state. And it's really interesting. So, whereas now I'll embrace it a lot more. I think after doing loads of personal development, you tend to, like you said, there's a lesson in it. There's a learning for it. There's a release in it. So, I think, like you said, own it and be okay with it. I was watching a great video before of a young lad that's stepping up and being a voice because he went through so much abuse in his childhood. And I was just like, full on credit to him for standing up and being so vulnerable at 26 and telling his story. So, I think that is the case, but reach out to the network. So obviously this is the Iconic Wealth for Women podcast. You are surrounded by incredible women in this community. So if you're in the community, do reach out with us if you are struggling with anything else. There's some amazing experts in the room, but really there's just some lovely people. I think for me, one of my turning points was launching the summit for this actual community, because you don't realize who your network is until you start to put something out there. And I'd never asked my network for pretty well anything. And then all of a sudden I had, 25 supporters, and women couldn't do enough to help. And, I really love that. So I think sometimes it surprises yourself who's actually there to support you when you need it the most. So I really love that, Lesley. So in relation to kind of what you do, Lesley, do you want to share a little bit about kind of, how you work with people, sort of like your journey to, I guess, creating the Money Confidence Academy, and what does that kind of all stand for?
Well, I think probably the easiest way to talk about that is almost to go to to the chapter that I wrote in the book that you have created, Kylie. And I talk about my framework, and my framework is called adios, adios to limiting beliefs around money. And it is creating that awareness, as we've spoken about, awareness of what is going on for you, the conversation that you are having with yourself and why you want to create the change. Really leaning into your desire. Why do you desire to move yourself to a point of discomfort? Because that's what you're going to be doing, is moving yourself to a point of discomfort. Then looking at all the information around you, the conversations you're having with yourself, what people are saying about what you do for them, the results that you bring, and really understanding that. Observing yourself moving away from the limiting beliefs that you've had and the results that you are having because of what you are doing. And then the S for systematic. And the S for systematic is really, really important, because people very often think, once I've worked on my mindset, once I've worked on my relationship with money, everything's going to be fine. I'm going to be a mega and that's it. I will be where I need to be. And as we know, that is not the case at all. New levels, new devils. And when you are ambitious, when you are good at what you do, really, it's not a case of who am I to do it. It's who am I not to support more clients? Who am I not to share what I do? So the S for systematic is keep revisiting those limiting beliefs that will continue to come up for you, but to recognize, I've kicked them into touch before. I now know what to do. This time around, I can do it more quickly, and I've got the evidence that I can do it. If I've done it once before, I know I can do it again. So for me, in creating the Money Confidence Academy, it is creating that sense that when we are really confident about our position in the world, what it is we do, why we want to do it, talking about the results that we bring for our clients, and being really confident in sharing those results and enjoying the fruits of our labor. Because it is about talking about, well, I've built this business. I now enjoy going on several holidays a year. I pay for my children to go to private school. Being able to share those things and not feel as though you're bragging, you're showing off. Because unless we create the evidence, but more importantly, talk about the evidence, what's the point? Because all we are doing is continuing that conversation, the wrong conversation, that money, that we shouldn't talk about money. And we absolutely should talk about money, as long as our intention in doing so is a good intention. It's not there to show off. It's not there to belittle anybody. It's there to demonstrate, if I can do it, you can do it, and let me show you how. And that's exactly what you're doing with Iconic Wealth, is creating that huge body of evidence that it is possible for other people, and showing them how it's possible. But confidence is the first step in that journey. And that's the connection that I want to make, is that to be confident about money, it starts with being self-confident about yourself. And the two are then an iterative circle that continues, and you pass on the legacy to other people in your network then as well, who do the same. And that ripple effect is the effect that it will continue to be positively affected no matter what we do.
Oh, there's so many powerful, I just want to sit there and absorb that, because there's so many powerful messages in there. And I think for me, the big one is very much around, like you said, building your evidence, but being, I think for me, it's the step-by-step approach as well. So, obviously I launch online programs, and, quite often I'll see someone that, says, oh, I've only sold 5. And I'm like, brilliant, you've sold 5. I get more excited than they do. And it is that common thing that you said, is once you've done it once, you can do it again. And I think that's really powerful. As I think sometimes as women, we don't stop and celebrate our successes and celebrate our wins along the way. You know, sometimes you can get too focused on the big end result that you don't focus on those small steps. So I really, really love that. And I love your process, Adios. I think it's just like, go on out of here. So brilliant. It couldn't have come at a better analogy. I don't know how you come up with that, but I absolutely love it. So you are part of the book, and I'm really excited. So if you haven't seen the book yet, this podcast is either out before it or during the launch, one or the other. Hopefully you'll get a copy of it yourself. There'll be links around this, obviously, this interview. But one of the things that we always love to do, because obviously we know, you know, wealth is a word that triggers a lot of people. So one of the things I've been asking people on the podcast is, what does wealth really mean to you? So I've had a few people say to me, oh, I'm not wealthy. Should I be involved? And I'd really love to know kind of, what does wealth mean to you? What's it stand for in your life?
Wealth to me is a state of mind, you know, without a shadow of a doubt. It is about creating freedom of time, freedom of choice, freedom to believe that what I want to achieve is possible and that it's down to me to make it happen. I've never seen a definition of wealth that says in order to call yourself wealthy, you have to be financially worth X. And that is because wealth does not come down to a figure of X. It comes down to the feeling of abundance, the feeling that you have created the life that you want to have for yourself and for those in your life, and that you feel satisfied by it. And I think that satisfaction to me is the biggest measure of, am I wealthy? And I would never want my children to ever aspire to a certain amount of money in the bank. I want them to aspire to a feeling of true satisfaction, and not self-satisfaction, that is a selfish feeling, but more to feel that I have created the space I take up in the world is allowing others to enjoy being part of their world as well. So for me, it is that sense of I am doing all that I need and want to do, and I'm satisfied with where I am. That to me is being wealthy.
Oh, I love it. I love that. Such a beautiful feeling. And I think, yeah, for me, it's always around, it's the freedom word that comes in so much of me. It's just like I said, it's growing the life, how you want to grow it, impacting people, how you want to impact. So I really, really love that. And some really cool definitions in the book around wealth and what it means for people at different stages and different areas of their life. And I think the other thing that we love to do on this podcast is we always ask our guests, what is something fun or interesting? Now, Lesley, we have to delve into this with you because you've had dinner with Princess Diana's brother at Althorpe House. Tell us about that. Like, how was that feeling sitting there with royalty, having dinner? What did you learn? What did you experience?
Well, first of all, it wasn't a one-on-one dinner. So that was, you know, that it was.
Well, that'd be interesting if it was. Hot date.
Exactly. So it was at Althorpe House. It was round about, trying to think when it would have been. It was probably round, Princess Diana had died. So it was absolutely after 1997.
Oh, okay.
It was a corporate event. But I actually had free reign access to large parts of the house because I was part of the event. I wasn't running the event. It was being run by an external company, but I was part of the event. Nick Ross, who used to present Crime Watch, was there. He and I became quite good friends, actually, but I had free reign of the library and the grand piano that had all the photographs of Princess Diana, Prince Harry, Prince William, etc., etc. I can remember being on the phone to somebody and glancing over, and literally over my shoulder was Earl Spencer. And I went completely quiet. He was literally behind, and why I'm whispering, because he's not literally behind me at the moment.
I love that though.
It was a feeling of awe to a certain extent. He was being paid for us to be there, to utilize his home, etc., etc. Didn't get to have a one-on-one conversation with him, was part of a group of conversations he was having. But as you know from being in corporate, it's those occasions that we get, being part of the corporate world, where you think, well, this is nice. I wouldn't normally get to do this kind of thing. And it was, an awe-inspiring moment, and something that, I definitely enjoyed at the time. But it was just a moment in time, basically.
Love it. I love it. I love finding out something fun and interesting, though. And we could go on and talk about that. You had to change your regulators 26 meters underneath the ocean. So you nearly basically died, really. you ran out of oxygen in your oxygen tank. I mean, that's crazy.
That was
your Bora Bora. Yeah.
So we were on honeymoon. I passed my open water diving certification probably about 6 months or so before. But when you do the tests, you tend to be in a very, very controlled environment.
Yeah.
And to change off your regulator, you have to take your regulator out. You have to put your buddy's regulator in. And to start another regulator, you've got to blow to actually release the mechanism inside. We were on honeymoon. We'd already been diving in Tahiti the week before, so I was feeling, relatively confident. We had lemon sharks and everything swimming around us. I glanced at my tank, and it was showing it was near empty. I was like, oh my bloody God. Went and banged on my husband's tank to get his attention, pointed. He pointed at the dive instructor ahead. I went up to him, showed him my tank. We were 26 meters down, because in French Polynesia, you can be, going by the certification that I had, we could be lower down in French Polynesia than we actually could be if I'd been in the UK. So he told me to sit on the ocean bed, basically, and he took his buddy, which is a spare pipe. He gave it to me, and I was like, oh my God, I've only ever done this in the practice.
Yeah.
I've never done this for real. Literally, and every regulator is different, essentially. So I took mine off, put this in, and had to go, hoping to God it would work. And even now, as I'm talking, my heart rate is speeding up again.
Yeah.
Thank God it worked. All I wanted to do was go back up to the surface.
Yeah.
He wouldn't allow me to. So I had to swim alongside him with his spare regulator, this tube connecting us. Turned out we couldn't go up because there was a speedboat circulating at the time. So we had to stay down for another 20 minutes or so. But that is the scariest moment of my life. Doing something I had never, ever practiced or done before. But I think that's probably a really good metaphor for life as an entrepreneur online, if I think about it.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's funny, isn't it? And it's probably, even though it was because of the boat, it's probably a good thing you stayed down, because it probably kept your confidence because you stayed there. Whereas if you'd, like you said, gone up, you may not have gone back down again either. Yeah. So I really, really love that. What a powerful story. I love these sorts of things. And obviously, I love to travel. So I've been diving, and I've done diving off the reef and things like that. But it is, like you said, it's very different when you're in those situations. You think, how do you react under pressure when it really happens to you? It's like you said, it's very easy in a controlled environment. So I really, really love that. Lesley, you've shared so much today around, your sort of journey, your sort of thought process around, like you said, where mindset and money growth. What's one thing that you'd love to kind of just share or wrap up with in relation to anyone that's tuning into this episode right now?
I think it is a case of really understand, what it is about money that makes you feel really uncomfortable. And don't shy away from that feeling of being uncomfortable, because that's actually the gift that gives you the thing that you need to work on. So it's a little bit like when you said, Kylie, if you think about somebody driving past, in a flash car, how does that make you feel? Do you feel envious? Do you feel jealous? Do you feel excited? Do you feel motivated? And it's to actually ask yourself that question. When I think about money, I feel X. And what is that X that you feel? And actually, how differently do you want to feel? And therefore, what is it that you need to do to make that difference, so you don't feel those negative feelings that very often we do feel when it comes to thinking about money. Because the more we lean into that feeling of being uncomfortable, the more we actually give ourselves that gift of exploration about the change that you want to create for yourself. And it really is true that, where mindset goes, money grows. And if we are holding ourselves back in terms of our ability to make more money, to grow our business, then by asking ourselves that question around our mindset, what is it I want to do that I'm not doing, and lean into, if I do it, the outcome will be. And I think it's having that really honest conversation with yourself that is really going to help you to educate yourself about what you actually need to be doing next.
Oh, powerful. What a powerful way to end this. So thank you so much for your time. It's been hugely valuable. Guys, I hope you're tuning into this and taking notes and taking some of the small action steps, because remember, we share this information not to kind of just inspire you or to get you thinking differently. It's ideally getting you to take those action steps. So first step is to remember to take your little journal around with you for 24 hours, like Lesley said, and let's get started. Let's get started creating some change. So Lesley, where are you mainly hanging out? I know there's going to be some links around this show, either above, below, depending where you're tuning in from, whether you're on the podcast or whether you may be watching on YouTube. Where is the best place for them to connect with you and come and hang out with you and get around your circle of support and level of knowledge?
The easiest place is to head to my website, which is themoneyconfidenceacademy.com, because all my social media links are there. I have a podcast as well, the Let's Talk Money and More podcast. But if you head to my website, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, etc. So it's very, very easy. Go to the website.
Brilliant. And I know you've got a fabulous free assessment on there, haven't you, which gets into their money. Is it their money journey or their money story?
Archetype.
Money archetype. That's it. Thank you so much. Brilliant. Lovely. Thank you so much for being a wonderful guest. It's been fabulous having you here. Do come and join us in the Iconic Wealth for Women community. You'll meet more experts like Lesley in there. We talk all things from property to investments to money mindset to branding, you name it. We've got it in relation to either growing your initial income or really developing your long-term wealth. So I look forward to connecting with you very, very soon. Thank you so much, Lesley.
Thank you. See you soon.